Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, Level, also known as About to Do This, back for you with another Morphtronic deck profile for one of the Master Duel events we are getting this year. This time the Legend Anthology event, aka the Millennium event. As you can see, I have made my way through the baseline gem rewards with a somewhat impressive track record, I might say. Mainly because Exodia players refuse to read, but we are going to talk about that once we look at the list that I played. This is Morphtronics with a small sprinkling of Machina or Earth Machine in general. We're going to talk a bit about a couple ratios and a couple choices and what this deck wants to do. Go through the cards. I will show you two replays that I have from the event. And yeah, then we are probably just wrapping this one up. We're starting up at the top here with Morphtronic Southon. All of the Morphtronics have two effects depending on their battle positions. I will in most cases just be pointing out relevant ones. Southon mainly excels with the attack position effect here, because once per turn you're able to roll a 6-sided die, reveal cards from the top of your deck equal to that die result, and then you're able to special summon a level 4 or lower Morphtronic from those cards. Incredible piece of swarming potential, something you are looking to recur in your combos a lot, especially off of, extenders like Morphtronic Reaper Unit, or, the once again limited Telephone, to try and pull out guys from your deck to make that you can make synchro plays, link plays, or just, overwhelm your opponent with card advantage, of course. Next in line is Morphtronic Smartphone, a level 1 tuner that can't be normal summoned or set. It has to be special summoned from your hand by banishing a Morphtronic monster from your graveyard, which is why the ignoring summoning conditions part in Southon's text is very important, because that also means that Smartphone is a viable reveal for that to summon. And similar to Southon, once again, we are rolling 6-sided dice, because while in attack position you can once per turn do that, reveal cards from the top of your deck, and then you're able to add a Morphtronic card from those to your hand. Mainly being, of course, the monsters are always good picks, especially if you have a Reaper unit in hand, as that needs a Morphtronic to discard. But Reaper unit itself and Morphtronic Converter are also pretty damn good targets as archetypal extenders to make sure that you have follow-up for those surges to continue your place. Then we have the Limited Man, once again, Morphtronic Telephone. Infamous attack position effect, because once per turn you are able to roll a 6-sided die, gain life equal to the result times 100, and then special summon a Morphtronic from your graveyard with a level equal to or lower than the result. Since a 6-sided die does not have a number lower than 1, you're always able to recur another level 1, which would usually mean 2 of these form a loop of link material, but this way you are just, recurring Southon or Smartphone. But recurring Southon is still pretty good, as Southon's effect is very killer. Pulling guys out the deck is pretty nice, so I do not hate that a bit. Defense position effect of Telephone sometimes does come in handy. I am a big fan of using that when my hand is just Gadget Gamer and a Smartphone, as that allows me to play more with the resources I then have at my disposal without banishing something important, especially since, the Telephone here is limited. You roll a die, excavate the top cards of your deck equal to the result, and then you can send an excavated Morphtronic card to the graveyard. Mainly I'm looking to just find a name to banish off a Smartphone in those cases. And then you can stack the rest back on top or bottom in any order, which is kind of nice. So yeah, at 1 it is sometimes rough, especially under the last event video. I did hear that at least one of you was, kind of struggling with that. But since this deck is a bit lower to the ground with the Machina pieces, you're kind of trying to make a couple sticky Earth Machine guys, and then hope that a Citadel coming back and board wiping your opponent kind of clutches you the game out. Which isn't too bad of a game plan, I will admit. But we're going to see about that in the replays. Next up is 3 copies of Morphtronic Remoten. This also has just a relevant attack position effect for the most part, because you're able to target a Morphtronic in your graveyard, banish that Morphtronic, and then you're able to add one with the same level. Of course, since Telephone is limited, that is something you will often search, but generally just being able to cycle through the level 1s in your graveyard is very handy, because those are your most potent ones. I'm fixing up the Morphtronic lineup with 2 copies of a very old friend, Morphtronic Scopen. This is mainly here for the defense position effect, because if you reveal this off of Southon, you can summon it in defense. It is treated as a level 4 monster while it's in defense, and then you're able to synchro into a super heavy Samurai Swordmaster Musashi. which on Synchro Summon adds you a machine back from the graveyard. Just need to keep in mind, if you have a Spell Trap Engrave, when you activate that, you cannot put that monster on the field or activate the effect of monsters with that same name for the rest of the turn. So this is mainly just something that grabs you follow-up, which is why usually if you can make this guy Gadget Gamer is a very safe pick, as you are most likely just using this guy once per turn anyways, and Gadget Gamer on a follow-up always gets you to like a Salphon or a Telephon. On the note of Gadget Gamer, while we're at it, when this guy is normal summoned, you can add a level 1 machine from your deck to your hand, tribute this, special summon a Morphtronic from your hand, and a Gadget Hauler from hand or deck. This is the Gadget Hauler. Basically a soft gun. You're just running for an engine that adds you Telephon to hand in 99% of cases if you don't have it. Tributes itself, puts Telephon Hauler on the field, which immediately gives you access to a level 7 Synchro play, which is in most cases going to be Power Tool Dragon because it grabs you the Archetypal Extender in Repair Unit. But in this event, something that also does come up quite handily is Samurai Destroyer, because this guy just eats the Exodia Fusion for breakfast. Moving into the Machina portion of the deck here, or the Earth Machine portion, more appropriately. We're playing 2 Machina Fortress. This is a special summonable idiot from hand or grave by discarding machines whose levels equal 8 or more. If you have this in hand, you can also discard itself for its own effect, which is kind of cute, allowing you to discard itself and another Morphtronic, essentially to put itself on the board. And as a level 7, it is very handy for Synchros, because if you have another level 1 tuner, make an Excel Stardust brings back the level 1 tuner, and then you're already in a position where you can make a Braver Dragon, which is pretty cool. Playing a Bullet Train mainly as another target for the Urgent schedule, and also because it does, you know, fit pretty well into the whole like idea of trying to be a bit more grindy with this, as this adding back an Earth Machine monster to your hand if in the end phase of a turn in which it was sent to the graveyard is pretty nice. So yeah, moving into, I guess, the payoff for the Machina portion, Machina Citadel. Can't be normal summon or set, has to be special by a card effect. You can special this from the graveyard of an Earth Machine monster you controlled is destroyed in any way, shape, or form. With most of your main deck and most of your, you know, extra deck pieces, you're trying to pass on being Earth Machine. That getting that life is not too hard. And if this is on the field, this is an absolute house, because you can target a machine monster you control, destroy that target, and then blow up monsters your opponent controls with equal or less attack than that monster. Citadel already being a 3k bungus basically means you're probably just Raigekiing your opponent. And since this guy always comes back, it is quite a nuisance to deal with. Yeah, out of all the structure deck bosses, this is probably my favorite one. We have a 1-for-1 here as a neat consistency piece, since it gets us to Salphon and Telephon. And then we have what's probably my favorite search spell in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Machina Redeployment. This has 2 effects depending on what you want. You can either discard a card to add 2 differently named Machina monsters from deck to hand, or you can discard a Machina card to add 2 differently named Machina cards from deck to hand. Basically always giving you the option to at the very least grab Fortress Citadel. You can always pitch Citadel for Fortress to put Fortress on the board as a body to use for Synchros, and Citadel in the grave as something your opponent has to worry about at least some point. And if you open a Machina card, you can always just discard that and potentially always grab Overdrive, which is, you know, something neat for recursion. Which I might as well while I'm at it. Overdrive is a normal trap. You target a machine you control, pop it, summon a Machina from deck with a different name than the monster you popped, which is of course also almost always going to be access to Citadel if you have like a leftover Morphtronic or like an Anger Knuckle on the board you can spare. And while this is in the graveyard, you can banish it, target 3 of your banished machines or that are in your graveyard, shuffle those in the deck, draw a card. Very nice on a follow-up turn, because this does give you not only your normal draw to work with, but also another card, which can sometimes be the difference to push through opponent's setups again. Then we have an Archetypal Extender, Morphtronic Converter here. This targets a machine you control and then applies the following effect depending on its battle position. You are basically just using the attack position effect of this. You special summon a Morphtronic with a different name from that target from your deck, and then place that target on top of your deck. Basically just something that allows you to easily reset soft ones per turn. So if you're targeting something that is not Salphon, because you can always pick up a Salphon. Salphon then immediately summons the thing back from the top of your deck. Which is great, but also just is able to sometimes translate like a Morphtronic you have spent into one you might need in that specific situations, like a remote, for example, if you need a higher level tuner to go into some synchro plays, which is very, very nice. Playing Braver equips, of course, a Metal Silver Armor, Super Magic Sword of Reptinus, and a Life Extreme for, you know, those two for that silly targeting lock, and the Life Extreme to help the Braver in combat by dropping opponents' monsters by 1500. Archetypal equip here, another archetypal equip here, a Morphtronic Repair unit. This sends a Morphtronic from your hand to the graveyard as cost, and then selects a Morphtronic in your graveyard to summon back to the field and equip with this card. The nice part about this card discarding for cost is that you can of course get Morphtronics you have in your hand, but you'd want on the field onto the field if you already have a legal target in graveyard. So if you have like a, you know, a Salphon or a Remote in graveyard, but you have like a Telephone in hand, you can always discard the Telephone for this, summon back the Telephone, and then continue playing from there. But overall, an archetypal Premature Burial is, I think, handy without much explanation. I'm playing 3 Urgent Schedule, definitely just for the reason to flex a Royal Rare that I have. This helps the deck immensely going second. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you special a level 4 or lower, and 1 level 5 or higher Earth Machine from your deck in defense, but you can't but then the effects are negated, and you can't declare attacks with monsters except machines this turn. Something that going second can pull like Remote and Gadget Hauler out the deck for immediate Braver access, which is pretty nice. But even just grabbing like Bullet Train Citadel and like Bullet Train or Citadel and like another Morphtronic out of the deck is already pretty handy to maybe get like a Bullet Train into rotation or something. Yeah, very, very cool card. Since it's a quick play spell, you can always, of course, also set this turn 1 to maybe chump block with a couple of guys you pull out the deck. Again, you know, Bullet Train and Citadel are prime targets for that. And then just grab like another guy. Did decide on running 3 Impermanent main. A lot of the like really cool staples are like banned for this event. Mainly the triple tactics cards are sadly gone. This deck would massively benefit from talents if it was still legal. Thrust if it was legal, since you can thrust for overdrive. But sadly, that is not the case. So yeah, I just chose Imperm because it's fairly decent both ways. I think this could be like any form of like staple you like. Maybe like Forbidden Chalice, equally good both ways. Just pick your poison in these 3 slots. For the extra deck, we're on a Formula Synchron because it's an easily made upstart goblin essentially. Morphtronic Earphone is here to be a recurable equip for your Braver Dragon, because this can re-equip itself from the graveyard to a synchro monster you control. So you have always fodder for your Braver effect activations. Musashi, as mentioned previously, is here to grab follow-up. Stardust Charge is another upstart you can ladder through. Guy Armor Dragon Shell is another equip synchro guy. You know, you can equip this from the graveyard to another synchro monster you control. And if an attack is declared involving that monster, you can draw a card. There's also an effect to recycle synchros, but I think that barely comes up with anything. This is probably a slot where you can look for like a better card to play. Be it another synchro, potentially like a synchro 8 you want to make. Let me quickly check if it's legal. Scarlet would be a good option. If you want like a good 8 for going second, this would be like a good fit. A Power to Dragon here, as mentioned, you make this off of your Gadget Gamer line, adding a repair unit most cases. Samurai Destroyer is here to eat Exodia players alive, because if this guy battles an opponent's monster, your opponent cannot activate cards and effects at the end of the damage step, and also that opponent's monster has its effects negated, which does counter the Exodia Fusion in 2 ways. Not only does this negate the Exodia Fusion's own effect of like gaining attack equal to life points, but also the effect of that quick play spell the Loner plays that would equip all the Exodia pieces to it to give it 10,000 attack, because the quick play spell gives that effect to the monster. So the Exodia pieces all fall off, goes down to 0 again, and the Samurai Destroyer does eat the Exodia Fusion. And funnily enough, if this guy leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, which the Exodia deck does such a board wipe consistently, you can target a machine in your graveyard, special it. Notice how this does not exclude itself, so it just brings itself back if board wiped, which is very nice. Crystal Wing is an easily made monster negate in this deck that does kind of tie up some game states. Excelsior Crusader Strength is here to ladder into Braver. You could maybe also conceivably think about, if it's legal, think about playing OG Starter Strength to have like the dodging effect live, but that rarely comes up in a lot of cases where you're making this. This is probably like the only thing on your board. Vermilion Dragon Mech is spot removal, which is always nice to have in the extra deck. Just something I included, especially because it's also Machine, so this does play under the urgent schedule restriction. Power 2 Braver Dragon is of course the main payoff for this deck. If this is special, it equips the 3 previously mentioned equips from deck itself. And during the main phase, it is by quick effect able to send one of those equip spells it's equipped to the graveyard, target an effect monster on the field, either negate its effects or swap its battle positions, which is another great way to deal with that Zodia fusion. The battle position effect finally does come up, as Life Extreme does pop a card if a monster's battle position is changed, which can be something that lets you manually trigger Citadel on your turn. If you're able to get Citadel into the graveyard and have like a leftover Earth Machine on the field, you can often Braver, send Earphone, or like rid yourself of one of the equips if you're willing to do that. I'm usually like not too mad about like sending the Metal Silver Armor. Sending the Metal Silver Armor, target that Earth Machine, swap its battle position, and then, you know, Extreme triggers on a new chain, pops the, you know, leftover Earth Machine, and Citadel brings itself back, which is kind of handy. Does make, you know, turn 1 setups a bit more threatening by themselves, which is pretty good. As, you know, the Citadel will easily get itself back in the graveyard by its own effect if you're board wiping, and then you can just, you know, hopefully bring it back again on that turn, or on your opponent's turn rather, if one of your Earth Machines is destroyed. Another Earth Machine that is fairly handy to have is Brave Master Rao. This is mainly just a big idiot, but on occasion can also draw you like a couple of cards, because if your opponent activates a spell trap card or effect, you can draw cards until you have 3 in hand. This deck does cycle through its hand pretty massively, so this can be kind of nice on follow-up turns. But the situations where you're making this are few and far between, because you're often just making this with like a Bullet Train and a Citadel you have on a board. Link Rebo is here to get Southern off the board if its effect is spent, or just generally level 1s of the board that are spent. And Anger Knuckle and Platinum Gadget are great Machine Link 2s that do have some nice utility, as Anger Knuckle enables the kind of resource loop with Bullet Train, because you can Anger Knuckle, send itself, summon Bullet Train back. And at least on your turn, you're able to send the Bullet Train from your field, summon the Anger Knuckle back, and then get an add back off of, you know, Bullet Train in the end phase, which almost always will give you, you know, fodder to either make plays or, you know, potentially for the Anger Knuckle to summon a guy back. Platinum Gadget is just a nice way to get machines out of your hand that are maybe stuck there. I think I've made this guy like once or twice, but it's mainly just for corner cases here. You can probably look for like a better replacement, but I do quite like this guy. Brings back good memories of when I first was getting back into the game, so that's why he's here. But yeah, with all that being said, I think we are going to look at some replays, and we're going to look at how this deck actually performs. Well, and the first replay we have here is one of the few games that I did not play against Millennium. Both replays are me going first, which I did not lose a lot of coin tosses this event, admittedly, which might have helped a ton in making this deck seem a lot better than it actually is. But yeah, going through a Gadget Gamer line using the Holler effect here to discard the Cellphone to summon it back off of Telephone. Trying to dig here for like a guy, immediately turning those into Excelsior Crusader Strength because I don't have a Morphtronic in hand. I could discard for the repay unit. Excelsior Crusaders to recurse Telephone again, summons back Cellphone. Cellphone tries to hit again, which is pretty cool if it would hit. Braver Dragon hits the board here. Could have deck thinned those 3 admittedly sooner. You do see me banishing the Telephone here to grab a Smartphone because I want to make a 5 off of that. And you also see me use the Earphone effect here to turn Fortress into a tuner. After which does seem weird admittedly, but does make a lot of sense when you consider the fact that this deck does play a level 12 Synchro in Brave Master Rao. I do set the redeployment here because it is basically not live anymore unless I specifically draw, I think, a Machina card. So I just want to make sure that I draw more cards off of Master Rao, because Master Rao allows you to draw until you have 3 in hand. I don't know why the fuck I'm letting this Chimera resolve, by the way. I think if I just Braver, negate Chimera here, the game is over on the spot, but that is, you know, my oversight in post. Opponent here goes for a Cyber Darkness Dragon, which is still a very chunky boy, crashes with the Braver, brings back the Citadel. Opponent is able to Cyber Eternal here. Cyber Darkness Dragon, funnily enough, not once, but apparently. Still gets to equip here and runs over the Masteral, which is unfortunate. Opponent does get burned for the silly 2k in the end phase here, as I go to and start my turn. That silly guy there has an attack effect that modifies his own attack, so I wonder what would happen if a monster attacked this guy that had an effect to negate opponent's monster's effects when it battles. Yeah, Samurai Destroyer has come in handy once or twice in this event. You see me crash the South one here mainly to trigger the Citadel that is freshly fallen off of that Cyber Darkness Dragon, and passing back to my opponent here after putting the Smartphone on the board, trying to hit something, just hitting a repair unit and turning Smartphone and Samurai Destroyer into a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, which should lock this game up rather nicely, as my opponent is just drawing for turn, going to main one, activating a Cyber Dark Realm, adding a cannon, but that cannon is simply getting negated by Crystal Wing, and my opponent picks up their cards. With that, we're going to look at, I'd say, average event gameplay against Millennium. So yeah, that is next on the list. We are once again going first. Again, sorry, I just chose not to lose a lot of coin tosses this event. Opened with redeployment again. If you open redeployment, it's usually in pairs, but that's usually fairly fine. You see me here just going for Fortress because I want to have the overdrive for potential follow-up. I think you can probably also just straight up go Fortress and, you know, Citadel here to get those two into rotation. But overdrive gets me to Citadel anyways, so what's the point, you know, what's the holdup essentially. Formula Synchron here for another draw, making Power Tool Braver Dragon here. And as you see me set the card before I normal summon Remote in here, I thought this was my turn, but then I realized I did all this without committing my normal summon. So yeah, I normal summon Remote in here, banish the Smartphone from the graveyard, and am still able to make an Anger Knuckle, which is of course very nice because that allows me to put this overdrive to good use without blowing up my Braver Dragon, which is pretty nice. Opponent goes, do their Millennium stuff, I pull out the Citadel, and as my opponent starts putting, you know, guys onto the field here, because I don't want to run into the Legendary Exodia Incarnate, I do go for, you know, the Citadel here. Before my opponent enters combat, I swap the Braver's battle position, try and pop that mysterious back row, mainly because not only does that retain the Braver, because the Super Magic Sword of Reptinus makes that guy indestructible by battle while he's in defense, but also gives me the option to just swap him back and, you know, potentially go after the back row here. Opponent triggers a whole bunch of their Millennium effects here. As I go Braver, negate the Exodia Incarnate, and then try and recycle, you know, a couple of the fonts here, which my opponent cannot negate anymore since the Exodia Incarnate is negated. Pull out two guys from the deck here to make a Samurai Destroyer. Anger Knuckle summons itself back here after sending the Bullet Train. I get a friendly reminder as to, you know, what the gimmick of illusion monsters here, as you see me butt heads with the two illusions that are currently on the board here, and the Bullet Train adds back Telephone in end phase. I go for the tag out here, summoning the Bullet Train back from the graveyard after sending the Anger Knuckle, so that if the Bullet Train were to leave the field here in some way, shape or form, I am able to put it on the board again as my opponent enters combat, decides to not read Samurai Destroyer, and get the Exodia Fusion destroyed. Which is the way a lot of these games go, by the way. Or a lot of these games went. A lot of Exodia players just ramming Incarnate into the Samurai Destroyer, and wondering why the Exodia die. But yeah, I'm just going through the motions here, putting a couple guys on the board, turning 2 of those into a Platinum Gadget, instead of making Maserau here. I think there was a Maserau line there. There wasn't. Anyways, putting, you know, the Imperm to good use to negate the battle protection effect of one of the illusion, and using the Samurai Destroyer here to punch over the other to ensure that I win this game. As you saw in these games, you are, you know, mainly just seeing to hopefully set up like a Citadel and Graveyard, which you do have a good bit of access to, since, you know, also Urgent Schedule gets it into rotation, since that pulls it directly out of the deck. And from there, if it goes to the graveyard, you can usually start recurring that fairly easily, or just by directly drawing into the Machina cards, which is pretty cool. And the Morphtronics, you know, they still do toolbox through like a good bit of synchros. Samurai Destroyer is putting in a lot of work for me this event, so that's maybe also something you should look into. And Braver Dragon is still an absolutely incredible card. Yeah, I think this is probably where I am going to wrap this one up. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you are rocking for this event, or if you're maybe you know, taking a page out of my book and also giving, you know, a list similar to this a shot. Or if you're, you know, a Millennium Andy, just rocking the Loner deck and getting those couple gems in before, you know, we swap over to Synchro and Fusion Event. So yeah, I'll be thanking you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.